We'll call to order the Glendale Redevelopment Agency meeting of July 8th, 2008. May we have the roll call, please?
Agency members: Draymond.
Here.
Quintero. Weaver.
Here.
Yusefian.
Here.
Chairman Najarian.
Here. May we have your report?
The agenda for the July 8th, 2008 regular meeting of the Glendale Redevelopment Agency was posted on Thursday, July 3, 2008 on the bulletin board outside City Hall.
Thank you. The next item, please.
Next item is approval of minutes.
So moved. Second.
There are no objections or corrections. The minutes will be approved as submitted. Next item, please.
Next item is oral communication. Discussion is limited to items not part of this agenda. Each speaker is allowed 5 minutes. Members of the Redevelopment Agency may question or respond to a speaker, but there will be no debate or decision. The matter may be referred to staff to the Executive Director for an investigation and report.
Thank you. I have one card from Herbert Milano.
Good afternoon. My name is Herbert Milano, Agency Chair Najarian, members of the Redevelopment Agency and city staff. Last week, on the agenda item for redevelopment, we had the issue of the 240 North Brand and the parking exception, a fairly large parking exception to be given to the Career College. And most of the conversation that I've heard, or the discussion that occurred, had to do with the value that such college and the training would have overall for the hospitals and so on. And my contention is that irrespective of the value that a particular entity may have with regard to its training of potential medical assistants or its beneficial impact to whatever reasons there may be, at the end of the day, you're dealing in the currency of the quality of life of the neighborhood. And it has been my hope for a long time, and I actually have written to Public Works for a suggestion on the most important issue that we have in this area, the same area that I just mentioned earlier, the area bounded by the 134 freeway and Broadway, Brand, and Glendale Avenue. It's an area that is where the residences are sandwiched in a commercial area, where a lot of the employees of that commercial area find their free parking on the streets of the residential streets of the neighborhood, where the parking that is available today is oftentimes packed by 5 p.m. and during different times of the day. You cannot find parking in the current city-owned parking lots on the east side of Brand. So the tendency has been for a long time to give variances to new buildings by giving more leadway to the builders to build less parking. It saves them money, and I understand the incentives for a builder to come in and ask for those type of variances. But I think that at some point in time we could use a gauge that says at a certain time of the day, staff or a consultant will drive by and count the number of open spaces available on street parking to get a sense as to how saturated those streets are. In order to accommodate this additional influx of on-street parking, several years ago, I think it's over 10 years ago, the city implemented a permit system to give to tenants. So now, of course, tenants and owners are inconvenienced now by having this. Then there was the restriction of limiting to 2 hours. And as you can see, the workarounds have been to reduce the quality of life of the residents in that area that is sandwiched between those two commercial areas. So I'm sure that other alternatives could be found which further restricts and constricts what guests can do. So you would imagine that a guest coming to visit one of the residents in this area will say, I can only stay there for 2 hours, or after 2 hours I have to go out there and move my car. But it's a quality of life issue. It is my hope that instead of a full-fledged EIR, which happens to, in my opinion, to be significantly boilerplate paragraphs that are taken. I mean, I've looked at one EIR and looked at the next one, and I can see identical pages, usually if it is by the same entity. So that instead of doing an EIR, my suggestion is a true performance-type report that says, at different times of the day, these are the availability of on-street parking that is available, or this is the demand. Because not only do we not have sufficient parking space on the street, we don't have sufficient parking spaces today, as families have grown and remain in those apartments for decades. And now those kids have grown up. And of course, there is an excessive demand that that I see we need to meet. But these are also the very same areas that don't have developed parkland either. And where this particular reports on EIR show that we are incredibly deficient in parkland. So we don't have the parkland, we don't have sufficient parking, we do have increased traffic congestion. So just because a particular college may have other beneficial impacts doesn't necessarily mean that it needs to be located precisely where it is being proposed. So again, my suggestion is that instead of a full-fledged environmental impact report, a good traffic and parking evaluation of this zone be made so that it could serve for future references, or to even double-check somebody else's product as an EIR for another project. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Milano. I don't have any other cards. I will close oral communications. I have no new business. Are there any comments? Mr. Yusefian.
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to clarify the issue on the 240 North Brand. I don't want there to be any misconception. My vote of yes last week does not be construed as an approval of the variance. The motion on the table was for staff to go out there and do the research and do the CEQA, and that's what I voted for. So I will wait for the outcome of all that information before I make a final decision. So I wanted to make that very clear. So don't assume that's a yes vote on that project until I see all the information. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Agency is adjourned.
Okay.